Tonight's route into the vinyl vault is a special route. It's the very first Gillan album that I bought on the day of release. So the road that we're taking into the vinyl vault today is the Glory Road. Hello, good evening and welcome. Well, Glory Road then from 1980, the very first Gillan album that I bought on its release. And I can remember it clearly because the music press the week before had carried an advert in there that the first pressings had got a free album in it called For Gillan Fans Only. Now, you've got to remember this is August 1980. I'm 16, barely 16. And in those days, there was no sort of internet or anything like that. You didn't find out about a great deal of stuff until it was about to happen. You got the music press, of course, where we found out about this. Now, what had been in the music press the week before had been the news that the new Gillan album will be out the next week, and the first 1,000 copies or so would have a free album in it for Gillan Fans Only. Now, I don't know whether I misread this, or whether I misunderstood it, or whether it was just because I wasn't very old. I got it into my head that they were only going to give these albums to people who could prove they were Gillan fans. Right? Now, here's me, 16-year-old, into this music. Now my hair's growing, I've got the gear on, whatever, but I'm still learning about stuff. And I'm thinking, I've got to get one of these. But when I go into the shop, they're going to ask me if I'm a Gillan fan. And I'm going to say, yes, I'm a Gillan fan. What if there's questions? What if they ask you questions and if you can't get them right, you don't get it? I'm going to have to make sure I know all the answers to all the questions. So, what did I do? Well, I got my sister, who was 3 years younger than me. I wanted to come into town with me the next day when I was coming into town to buy this album. So I made her test me for about 2 hours on questions about Ian Gillan. Where was he born? What was his date of birth? What was the name of the first band he was in? What was his favourite singer? What was the first album he made with Deep? All sorts of stupid things like that. As though I was going on Mastermind to go and buy a record. And it was right, I'm ready for this now. Off I go into town with my sister in tow because I've got to take her with me because she's not allowed to go to town on her own because she's only 13. So, off we go into town, get to the shop. Berwick's the record shop in Rugby, where I'm expecting to be quizzed when I go in and ask for the new Gillan album. What did they do? Took my £4 off me, or about 50, whatever it was, and gave it me. And you know what? I thought they didn't ask me any questions. Any old body could have got that. Didn't have to be a Gillan fan to get that. And I felt cheated because I'd spent ages learning all about stuff. And I suppose, maybe you could say, that is the reason why I became so anarchy about all these bands and all this type of music, because it sort of got me into the thing of learning about it. Get it home then and have a listen to it, and what do I think? Well, blimey, I can remember as clear as day putting it on and putting the needle down on the first track, Unchain Your Brain, and flipping it was that heavy to me at that point. That was fast and furious and blimey. It was great stuff. Then, of course, into Are You Sure, which I sort of think I preferred to the opening track. Clever Ian Gillan lyrics on there. Really great track, especially in its positioning following Unchain Your Brain, because it just led you into that perfectly, which leads me on to one other strange thing, which I was going to mention later on, is that the American version didn't start with Unchain Your Brain. The American version started with Running White-Faced City Boy, which on this version is on side 2 towards the end. Now, as good a track as Running White-Faced City Boy is, it is not an album opener to me. I can't imagine how that would set the mood for the rest of the album the way that Unchain Your Brain does, because it's just classic. I can't think of any other position on the album that Unchain Your Brain could sit comfortably other than as the opening track. But anyway, so there you go. So that's a great 1-2 punch for me. I like that when albums got a great 1-2 punch like that. And then the third track drops things down a little bit tempo wise, and that recurring sort of riff in time and again, the third track is wonderful, isn't it? It just stays in your head, and you just go with it. It's fantastic, and it is a completely different thing to what you've had on the first two. Then you go, of course, into No Easy Way, which I think was the first single they put out from this. I think that one came out before Sleeping on the Job, and there's some great Bernie Tormé stuff on this, isn't there? Some absolutely fantastic guitar and stuff with all the feedback and everything. It's brilliant stuff. The fifth track, the final track on side one, was also released as a single, and that was called Sleeping on the Job, although for some reason Ian Gillan constantly referred to it as cacking on the yob at the time. I'm quite sure why. I presume that must be some sort of in-joke at the time for the band and people, but it's always stuck in my head that he used to call that track cacking on the yob. Now that one was completely left off the American version of the album and was replaced by a track called Your Mother Was Right, which was on the For Gillan Fans Only album, which we're going to come to later, because the For Gillan Fans Only album didn't get released in America. Why they chose that one in particular and not any others, I have no idea. Maybe you could argue maybe because some of the tracks had been out on the Japanese album stuff, but I don't think they'd have sold enough copies in America to have made any difference. So I really don't know what the thinking was behind swapping that particular track over. Maybe the record company was a different record company in America. It came out on RSO in America, and maybe they thought Sleeping on the Job wasn't suitable for the American market. I can't imagine why. It sounds perfectly good to me as that would go down well in America. Maybe, and I'm just being mischievous here, but maybe they thought, well, the bloke can't even remember what it's called, so we're not putting that on the album. But I doubt it. Anyway, on to side two, which is, again, kicks off with a brilliant track, doesn't it? On the Rocks. I mean, absolute brilliant. Could you say it's almost Mr. Universe Part 2 or something? Maybe a little bit, but it's brilliant, and it just shows you how good a songwriter Colin Towns was. I mean, to say, if you sort of go through Colin Towns' career and stuff that's happened, the things that he was doing before Gillan and things that he did after, you've got to say that he probably wasn't a great fan of this type of music, really. But yeah, he's just so good at writing songs for it. I mean, really, really important. John McCoy and Bernie Tormé were getting more involved with the writing as well. But if it hadn't been for Colin Towns, I don't think this album, and certainly not Mr. Universe, would have been anywhere near as good as they were. So it's incredible to think that somebody who's probably not totally in love with heavy rock music can make such a good job of playing it and writing it. He's as big a part of Gillan to me as Gillan is, really. And I think it's probably fair to say they all are, really, as well. After On the Rocks, you've got If You Believe Me, which is standard sort of blues type thing, which you could probably imagine him doing in Deep Purple days as well, really, but that's not to say there's anything wrong with it. It's good stuff. Then the final two tracks on the English version of the album, the British version of the album, the European version of the album, is Running White Face City Boy, which again is brilliant. It's a great track, it's just not an opener for me. And then you've got the final track, Nervous, which for a while I thought my copy was damaged because it doesn't run out. Unless mine is damaged, of course, but often it can't be because I've got two copies and they both do it. When you get the fade out bit at the end of the record, it normally like fades into the dead wax, doesn't it? And then you just keep going round and round and round until you take the needle off, unless you've got a record player that does auto cut off. This doesn't. It just keeps going round and round and round and noise, which is it's great. It's just a nice sort of way to end it. So yeah, this was the first Gillan album that I bought on the day it came out. I'm desperately trying to think of the order that I bought things in. I can't get it all 100% right because I managed to pick up so much in the space of those first 2 or 3 years of collecting. I know I bought Mr. Universe on the same day that I bought... No, I bought Mr. Universe on the same day as I bought Burn. Now, I'm pretty sure that I had Burn quite early on. So I've got a feeling I may have already had Mr. Universe when this came out. I can't remember. You sort of kind of wish you'd written it all down, don't you? When you're going back buying things in sort of retrospect and not buying them when they came out. So I'm pretty sure that when this came out, I had already got Mr. Universe. And so that was probably why I was looking forward to it so much. Incidentally, if you've got a copy of Mr. Universe to hand, and you've got the inner sleeve, if you look at the inner sleeve, there is a picture of Ian Gillan with a horse. Now, Ian Gillan got interested in horse racing, same as me. Ian Pace did as well. Ian Pace had a racehorse called Perfect Strangers in 1984-85. If you look at that picture, if you look at the inner sleeve of Mr. Universe, you will see a picture of Ian Gillan with his racehorse, which was called Glory Road. There you go. And then is this the only rock album named after a racehorse? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But anyway, there you go. That's Glory Road by Gillan. We'll take a quick look at the for Gillan Fans Only, because obviously, as I said before, I was expecting this to be something that you only got if you could prove you're an uber Gillan fan, and I was expecting to be tested. When I actually put it on, I couldn't quite figure out what it was supposed to be, because you kick off with sort of Higher and Higher, which has got Ian Gillan singing on it. And of course, at that point as well, Your Mother Was Right, Abbey of Thelema. I had not heard them before because I hadn't got the Japanese album yet, or the Japanese version of Mr. Universe yet, whichever ones they come on. I get all mixed up, a lot of those ones. The thing that really surprised me was the Elvis Presley track, Trying to Get to You. Now, this is a thing that we don't get to talk about very often. We often talk about families in these videos. I've already mentioned my sister I had to take into town for giving me the test. Well, my mother was an Elvis Presley fanatic, and she must have heard this coming out my bedroom door, and it was a case of, what was that you were listening to? And I said, it's Gillan. She said, no, it's not, it's an Elvis song, that is. Oh, what is it? Oh, I didn't know that at the time. From that point onwards, my mother became a Gillan fan. And she was always saying, because he was always turning up on the TV on news programmes, wasn't he? And so when we had a news programme, ITV today, it was Central News, I think it was called. And I remember her ringing me up one day. Obviously I'd moved out by then. And it was, your mate, she always used to call him my mate. It used to be your mate Robert Plant, or your mate Gillan, or your mate Richie Blackmore. Oh, she thought they were my mates or whatever. But your mate Ian Gillan's on Central News later. And he used to go in there and have a little 5-minute chat with them, didn't he? When they were playing the Birmingham Odeon and stuff like that. It was brilliant. Just because she found out that he liked Elvis Presley, she suddenly thought Ian Gillan was great. And one of the other things, I'll just tell you this funny story now as well. In about, oh goodness me, what year would it be? I can't remember what year this would be. It would probably be, could probably look it up and find out. But at the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry, they got Jesus Christ Superstar on. Now, because my mother knew Ian Gillan, so she thought it would be him. And she said to me, I need you to come to Coventry with me tomorrow. I need to go to something, but I don't want to go on my own. And what is it? I said, I want to go to the theatre. And I thought, I don't want to go to the Premier Theatre. I thought it was going to be some stuffy old play or something. And what she'd done is she bought these 2 tickets to go and see Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical thing, thinking that it was going to be Ian Gillan and I'd be delighted. And of course we got there and it had been redone in a modern thing. And I think it was the bloke out of Tim Pole Tudor or something that was playing the lead role. And she kept saying to me, which one's Ian Gillan? And I went, he's not in it. She was so disappointed because she thought she'd sort of like got sort of really sort of special for me to go to. But anyway, there you go. So that was another little thing about that. This rest of this, I mean, there's some great stuff on here as well. There's a Splitney Loons EP, which is basically Gillan without Gillan. They're larking about and playing some daft stuff. There's a good Colin Towns instrumental on it as well, which I think may have been left off one of his earlier solo albums. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think I've heard that somewhere in the past. Gillan, the band, were more accessible to that. It's difficult for people to explain it these days because everything is so accessible, isn't it? Because you've got the internet, everybody's got Facebook pages, whether they're run by the real people, whether they've got agents doing it for them, who knows. But in some cases you are. I mean, Burton Cummings from the Guess Who, it's definitely him on his Facebook page that posts the stuff. You can just tell because of the way he's doing it. There are others where you look at it and you think, oh, no, this is definitely not them, it's somebody doing it for them. The thing was, back in those days, in 1980, there wasn't any of that, and all you got was a music press, and you might get an interview once a year if you were lucky, 2-page spread with Ian Gillan, or Richie Blackmore, or David Cordell, or somebody. People who sort of fallen off the radar a little bit, like Bad Company, sort of disappeared, haven't they, at that point, and you didn't hear anything about them at all. The difference between Gillan and the rest of them was that Gillan popped up on things. He'd, like I say, he'd turn up on Central News. He'd turn up on kids' TV programmes and have custard pies thrown at him. He'd go on pop quiz programmes on the TV. The rest of them didn't do that. It was almost as though Ian Gillan was saying, I know where I came from. I appreciate that I've now become a rock superstar, but I've not lost my identity. I'm still connected to where I came from and where I am. And quite regularly, apparently, and I'll have to explain this again in a minute, quite regularly, apparently, he could be found in the pub before the gig. Now, this is something that you're going to find strange, but time, again, is a thing, isn't it? From this, when this album came in 1980, you've got to remember that within 3 years, less than 3 years later, because this is August 1980, so less than 3 years later, Gillan had gone, probably little more than a year or so later, Bernie Tormey has left the band, and they've become a different band then, really. And Ian Gillan's joined Black Sabbath, and he's gone off and he's gone back into Deep Purple again. At that time, when you're, especially when you're young like I was, you think that these things are going to last forever and there's no great urgency. I saw Rainbow 3 times. I saw Whitesnake probably about 5 or 6 times. I never actually saw Gillan in this lineup at all. For some reason, I never got to go to one. I don't know whether it was because I was doing something else or because it wasn't because I didn't like them as much. It just never quite happened. It was one of those things, there were gigs all over the place in those days. I remember one week we went to see Rainbow, Whitesnake and Gary Moore, all in the same night, but 3 nights in the 1 week. And I think you just thought, well, I'll catch them next time, man. I'll catch them. And then eventually, years later, when we're talking about it, when did you see them? And I was thinking about it. I didn't actually see a band with the name Gillan until the Toolbox tour, which was way in the 90s, wasn't it? So crazy that, I can't believe that. I had a video of Rock Goes to College, which was probably from about, it was probably this album, or it may have been the one after. It was amazing, and the more I see that, because I think it's available on DVD now, it's one of my big regrets that I never actually saw this lineup of Gillan. And then another thing, going back to the way that social media stuff has changed, about sort of, again, 10, 12 years ago when I was doing the reviewing stuff properly, written and all that sort of stuff, I got talking on Facebook to Bernie Tormey, to John McCoy and to Mick Underwood. I'm still connected with John McCoy now, although happy birthday is about the only sort of conversations that we have anymore. But and they would answer questions. I remember saying to Mick Underwood one time whether he was disappointed with the sound of the drums on one of the albums, and he said to me, no, I always thought they sounded great. And I just thought one of the albums, I can't remember which one it was now, I didn't think the drum sounded as though it was far enough forward in the sort of mix, but he said no, he was more than happy with it. So, and that was a difference. They were accessible, and John McCoy still is now. He comments on things on Facebook, and it's really him. And that, I think, was the thing that I'm trying to say. The main difference between Gillan and the other purple spin-off band, which again the people that weren't indie will probably get fed up of being referred to as a purple spin-off band, but they just felt like they were closer to you, if you like. They were accessible. If you saw them in the street, you just go, all right, mate, do you want a pint? I've waffled on a bit today, as usual, but that's the story of how I bought Glory Road. There'll be more of these coming soon. In the meantime, have a look at the back catalogue and I'll catch you over in one of those videos. Thanks for watching.